Okay, so we are talking about location mattering on where Zebulon Pike started that Fort Snelling. So let's find out why that land that he found was so important.
Rivers and the military. In 1805, men representing the U.S. government traveled by boat up the Mississippi River to the region that is now Minnesota. When they arrived at the confluence of the Minnesota and Mississippi rivers, they saw it was a place of strategic importance. High bluffs along the shores provided excellent protection from attack by the British. The bluffs also offered a bird's-eye view of the two rivers and anyone traveling on them. Fort Snelling was built high on the bluff above the confluence so the military could control the river.
So why was it so strategic to be at this specific location for Fort Snelling? What strategies were they using? Why that area, Ruby?
They had the high bluffs, so like if the British were to attack, they could.
Yeah, so think about that. They're up high in the fort, looking down at the river. So why is it so strategic to be up high on a bluff? If the British want to take over the fort, they want to take over the fur trading business, why is it better to be up high? Why do you think, Nolan?
They have better shots at them.
Okay, so think if you're up high, you're just standing there. You can look down and you can shoot at the soldiers coming at you. What are the soldiers coming at you trying to do? They're not shooting. What are they trying to do? Christina?
They're trying to take your stuff.
Trying to what?
Trying to take your stuff.
Well, they have to get to your stuff. How are they going to get to your stuff? You're up here on the bluff. How are they going to get to you, James?
They have to climb up the hill.
They have to climb up those bluffs. Is it easy to climb up bluffs? Bluffs are like a cliff. Not easy to climb up. You can't be shooting easy, getting good shots in as you're climbing up, right? You're going up a steep cliff or steep trail, trying to come up, it's going to be hard. So it's a lot better to be looking down, standing still, than trying to climb up and protect yourself. Why else was this very strategic? Harper?
I was gonna say for the last one.
Yeah.
You could also look down and see where they're coming from, like along the river.
That's what I was looking for. So when you're standing up on the bluffs, you got two rivers coming, the Mississippi and the Minnesota rivers. Well, you can look down the river and you can see, because you're high, you can see for a long ways. So they can see, why would the British be coming on the river? Think that one through. Why would the British be traveling by river? Nolan? Faster, right? You're walking, it's gonna take a long time to get to that location. They wanna take the riverways. Goes a whole lot quicker to paddle. You can have several people paddling that canoe, those boats, and they're gonna come a lot faster, so they're gonna wanna be on the river. But if you're up on the bluff, you can look way down the river, you can say, oh, people are coming. We need to protect ourselves, we need to prepare. So they wanna be up high so they can see farther. So it's very strategic to be there, because why did they build the fort? They didn't build it to fight the British, but to protect what? Nolan? The fur trade. That's where the big fur trading business was happening. They wanted to protect the fur trade. So they wanted to make sure the British wouldn't attack to take over that fur trade.
Rivers and port towns. Fur traders also saw the importance of this place. In the early 1800s, they built a trading post across the Minnesota River from Fort Snelling. They called it Mendota, an English interpretation of Badote. As the fur trade grew, Mendota gained importance as a port town, receiving tons of trade goods and shipping out tons of furs. However, by the 1840s, St. Paul outgrew Mendota and replaced it as the region's primary port.
So we know the soldiers, the military would use those rivers. Who else is using the rivers that we've learned about in the last chapter? Who was using the rivers, Bridget?
Traders.
Yeah. And who, as part of the fur trade, who were the big people using it? The voyageurs, right? They're the ones that are transporting all the pelts and transporting all the trade goods. So here you've got two big main rivers meeting, big place to have a trading post. Lots of voyageurs can get to you. That's key. So not only was it a key spot for the Fort Snelling to be, it was a key spot for the trading post to be right across from the Fort Snelling, who's gonna protect them. All right, different perspectives. So different reasons why things happen, why we do what we do. So if we look at our comprehension page number 4, in the table below, explain how each group valued Minnesota's natural resources. Natural, like land and rivers. So we're gonna look at how the Dakota viewed these things, what were their thoughts on it, and then we're gonna look at those European Americans. What were their thoughts on it? There are multiple things we're gonna be learning about. Why would we want to put all of it in those boxes? Adeline? Yeah, because we're gonna have a test on this. We don't wanna put just one little thing, because that might not help us the most when we study for our test. So let's make sure that we're completely filling out these boxes, thinking about how do the Dakota view land and rivers? How do the European Americans?
The value of resources. To the Dakota, as well as to the Ojibwe living farther north, Minnesota was home. They believed that it belonged to the people who lived there, just as the people belonged to it. The land held the graves of their ancestors and the places of their sacred traditions. It provided the food and other resources necessary for survival. The area's rivers supplied fish and fresh water, as well as a means for travel.
Okay, so what did the Dakota get? How were they viewing it? Who was listening? Nolan P.
The area of the rivers supplied fish and fresh water as well as means for travel.
So they're looking at what is it providing? Oh, Mother Earth is taking care of us and providing these things for us. And we can use it to travel on, we can use it to get stuff. Remember when the American Indians got stuff from the land, what was a very important thing that they did? They gave thanks, and they gave those gifts of tobacco back, right? So they were giving back to the earth, saying, oh, you're taking care of us, we're going to give thanks for that.
To many of the American newcomers, Minnesota looked like a land of resources from which to benefit. Forested lands could provide timber for new construction. The open prairies with fertile soil could be made into farms. The rivers could serve as both transportation routes and sources of power used to operate lumber and flour mills. Land could be divided into lots and then sold. Individuals could buy this property and build houses and businesses.
So the Dakota, the Ojibwe, they're looking at the land saying, oh, you're providing for us, you're helping take care of us, we're going to give thanks and give back to you, and we're going to see how we work together and coexist. European Americans coming in are looking at it differently. What are they looking at? What were their values? Harper?
They saw land.
And what were they going to get from the land? Was it given to them and they were going to give back?
They were just gonna like both things.
They were going to own it. They were going to have it. This is ours, right? They're seeing, oh, look at all this lumber. Look at all these trees. We can profit from it. What does it mean to profit from something? James?
Like the money that you get from
Make money off of it. Did the Dakota have money? Or they say, oh, we want all this, we're going to get money from it? No, they don't have money. That's why they were setting up those annuities in the treaties, because they have no money. That's not part of their culture. The European Americans are saying, we want money, right? That's status. We want to own a lot. We want to have a lot. So they have different values for it. Look at the land ownership that we're going to talk about. This also can go in those boxes. How did they view the land?
Land ownership. The Dakota and the Ojibwe viewed land ownership differently than Europeans and Americans did. In Ojibwe and Dakota societies, individuals did not own land. Instead, groups controlled an area of land and the resources on it. Sometimes the Dakota, Ojibwe, and other American Indian nations made agreements with each other, as the Ojibwe and Dakota had in 1679, to share land and resources. Other times, they fought to protect their hunting land or village sites from takeover.
So the European Americans are saying, oh, we want to buy this land, divide it up, sell it, because we want to own our land. What is Minnesota like now? Eleanor?
Well, people own their land.
We own our land because the majority of us have European American ancestors, right? So nowadays, it's very common everywhere that you own your land. I have my house, I have my yard, right? My dad up north has lots of maple trees and he goes out and taps them himself. He will tap the trees, get the maple sugar, the sap, turn it into the syrup, and then he sells it. Because it's his. He did all the work. It's from his trees that he took care of. He made the maple syrup, and he's selling it. But think about the Dakota and the Ojibwe. They don't own the land, my land. They say this is Dakota land. We're going in the springtime, we're going to the sugar camps. And we're all going to work together to tap the trees and turn that sap into the sugar and into the syrup. Right? So we work together with it and we share it. It's different where my dad lives because it's his land, he does it, it's his property, his syrup, he sells it, he gets money for it. So the Dakota, we're saying, we share this. This is Dakota land. It's not Nolan lives here, this is his spot, right? It's all, this is 6KG's area, right? We share it all. So the Dakota and the European Americans were viewing that land ownership very differently. There was Dakota land, there was Ojibwe land. The American Indians had large pieces of land that was kind of theirs, in that we're the ones that live here, this is our area, and we might fight over it with each other, but it's a big area, it's not owned by an individual, it's the whole group shares it. So different thoughts on that land ownership. Sharing it with the whole group versus owning it individually.
Changing times. For more than 150 years, European and American fur trading companies had profited from the furs provided by the Dakota and Ojibwe. Now, major changes were happening in the area. Some were economic and others geographic. In the 1830s, the demand for furs started to drop, and the fur trade was becoming less profitable. At the same time, westward expansion started to increase dramatically. To make room for more settlers, the U.S. government wanted the lands of the Ojibwe and the Dakota.
So we talked about that. Fur trade's gonna end, right? Fashion changes, fur trade ends, that's gonna cause a lot of problems for the Dakota and the Ojibwe, cause problems for the fur trading companies, because that business relationship they have now going away. Also, we have that westward expansion. The United States wants this land. There's so much to offer, all those natural resources, all that land. It's gonna do good things for the new country. So the Dakota and the Ojibwe get stuck in this battle. All of a sudden there's no more fur trading. And people want our land. Who has more power, Dakota and Ojibwe or the United States? Who remembers from last time, who has the more power? Are they equal, or does one have more power, Robbie?
The U.S. has more power.
The U.S. has more power, so the Dakota and the Ojibwe are saying, uh-oh, now we're going into debt because we can't trade the fur. They want our land, they have more power, what are we gonna do? So, fur trade's ending. Why? Let's learn about why that fur trade ends.
So what? Fashion. It's been around for centuries. Chances are, if you look around at other students, you'll notice a type of shoe or jeans or even a haircut that's currently in style. Wearing the latest fashions is important to many people today, perhaps even your parents. It's been that way for hundreds of years.
They all wanted the beaver felt hats. That's the fashion, that's the symbol. Saying, ooh, look at me, I'm in fashion, I'm powerful, I'm a good, cool person, right? We still have fashion trends today. I know this summer Mateo was all excited because he got his On Cloud shoes, and Mr. Gambino's like, what? You're getting what? He'd never heard of On Cloud, right? Because Mr. Gambino doesn't care so much about the fashion, he just cares about shoes that are comfortable for him. But Mateo's like, I want the On Cloud shoes, those are really cool. So they're the newest trend. Sometimes there will be fashion trends that last a long time. How long were those beaver felt hats popular? Who remembers? James?
For 3 years. 4.
Lot longer than that. Robbie?
Couple hundred.
Not quite as much. 150. So you're closer than 3. So 150 years, long time. I remember back when I was a kid, Birkenstocks became popular. And I had Birkenstock sandals. And now Gianna's saying, I want to get Birkenstocks. I want the Birkenstock clogs. I want the and I was looking at the website. I'm like, hey, those are the sandals that I used to have. They're still popular. I'm like, man, I should have saved those. But they're still popular. Some trends will last a long time. Some trends go by quickly. Adeline.
Like, used to like bell bottoms,
Yeah.
and now they're back and stuff.
Yeah. Back before my time, because I'm not that old, but before my time, bell bottoms were really cool. Back in the 60s and 70s. So the bell bottom pants were really cool. Now they're coming back in fashion. A lot of times you'll see that. Things that were popular went out of popularity and then they come back again. Okay, the mom jeans. Oh, it bugged me when that trend came back because I remember when I was little, it was really popular and I was so glad when it went out of style and then it came back and my girls were like, I want the mom jeans. Why would you want jeans that are called mom jeans? I never understood why kids wanted mom jeans because it just sounds silly. Why would you want something that's even called mom jeans? It's just silly to me. So yes, fashions come and go, and then they come back again, and then they go and they come back. Let's learn a little bit more.
Fashion is not just fun, it's also big business. Believe it or not, the main reason the North American fur trade became less profitable in the 1800s was because of changing fashions. For over 150 years, it had been the peak of fashion to wear a top hat made from felted beaver or muskrat fur. Eventually, fashion changed, and many people began to prefer top hats made of silk, like the one shown here. They thought the new, shiny material looked more elegant. The fur trade turned into the silk trade, and silk was not produced in Minnesota. This change in fashion helped end the fur trade as a big business in Minnesota. It was a costly change for the Ojibwe, the Dakota, and the fur trading companies. Name a fashion trend today that affects the economy.
So instead of talking about that, let's see what we know. Where does silk come from? You know? Not milkweed. We have milkweed here in Minnesota. This is something we do not have in Minnesota. Parker?
Oh, silkworms.
Silkworms. Silkworms make silk, right? So think about how a spider makes spider webs, right? They've got the webbing comes from the spider to make it. Silkworms makes silk. Yeah.
It's so
But it's a type of material that's obviously clean and it's okay to use, and it's actually really expensive, right? If you have a silk pillowcase versus just a cotton pillowcase, it's going to cost a little bit more because it's better material. right? So the silk hats are a step up. It's a better material, right? It's shiny and smooth and soft, okay? It's different. Where do silkworms live? Would we find silkworms? Do you know, Aiden? I'm thinking of like countries. Like where would they live? Bridget?
Like Asia.
Yeah, Asia. So silkworms are in Asia. The climate is a lot warmer. Okay, here in Minnesota we have winter. It gets down to negative numbers, right? Snow on the ground. Silkworms can't live in that. So all of a sudden these fur trading companies that are getting pelts from the Dakota and the Ojibwe, we can't just flip over and say, okay, we don't want the beaver pelts, go out and collect silkworms for us, because there's no silkworms here. The Dakota and the Ojibwe are saying, oh, we can't provide silkworms. That's not found here. So the whole trading business for the hats that they were making all this money from, the Dakota and Ojibwe were getting all the trade goods from, all of a sudden it picks up and moves over to Asia. Can the Dakota and the Ojibwe just pick up and move over to Asia? No. Right, so the whole trading business moves to a whole different location on the planet. And the trading companies and the Dakota and the Ojibwe are left with nothing. They're going, uh-oh, now what do we do? So, at the same time, that westward expansion is happening, and the United States is wanting this land because we all know how amazing Minnesota is. We have such amazing natural resources here. The United States is saying, we want this land. So, American settlements grow.
American settlements grow. In 1837, the Dakota and the Ojibwe signed treaties with the United States. These treaties opened up land for settlement between the Mississippi and St. Croix rivers. The Ojibwe and the Dakota had not yet been paid when they heard the thud of axes and the crash of falling trees. Americans had moved in, seeking timber and land. They were building sawmills and settlements on the St. Croix River at places they named Marine on St. Croix, Taylor's Falls, and Stillwater.
Places that we still have today. We've heard of it, Stillwater, Taylor's Falls. I've been there, right? We know those places. What main natural resources are they coming for? What was so popular, Aiden? The timber, the trees. What else was super popular that we had here? No? The land. Right? Those are both natural resources in high demand. They couldn't even wait for the payments to start. They said, oh, the treaties were signed, let's go. I want this area. We want to set up these sawmills. There's so much here.
Around 1838, another settlement began to grow just down the Mississippi River from Fort Snelling. It was called Pig's Eye Landing for a one-eyed man who opened a tavern there. Later, settlers decided to rename the town St. Paul for a little log church built by a missionary priest. Across the river from St. Paul was Little Crow's Village, also known as